beautiful people. It's your girl Sunshine, and welcome back to Energize Your Passion, the place where we talk about life the way it actually feels. Not polished, not perfect, just honest. I'm your host Sunshine, and today's conversation is one that quietly sits in a lot of our hearts. We're talking about that person, the one who knows your stories before you finish telling them, the one who's been there through breakups, job changes, late night calls, and life shifts. The one who feels safe, maybe too safe. Today's question is simple, but the answer rarely is. Should you date a longtime platonic friend? I want to start this episode by getting a little personal with you because if I'm asking you to reflect honestly, I owe you the same. There's a man I've known since I was 15 years old. 15. That's a lifetime ago. We grew up in each other's world, watched each other change, stumble, grow, and figure things out. He knew me before I knew myself, before life layered on expectations, heartbreak, and responsibilities. 25 years ago, our worlds intersected again. I had the opportunity to be in a relationship with him. Not a maybe, not a fantasy, a real opportunity. And I didn't take it. There's more to the story, but that's for another day. The timing was not right. Life was moving fast. I told myself we had time. I told myself friendship mattered more. I told myself that if it was meant to be, it will find its way back around. But here's the truth I've had to sit with as I've gotten older. That moment, that choice, became my one true regret in life. We are still great friends today. We talk, we laugh, we check in on each other, and every once in a while, there's this quiet hovering between us, a feeling that never fully left, a question that never fully got answered. We circle it without touching it, like we both know what it is, but aren't sure what opening that door would change. And sometimes I wonder what my life would look like if I had been braver back then. Would it have worked? Would it have fallen apart? Will we still be in each other's lives? I may never know. And that's the part that stays with you. Not the rejection, not the breakup that never happened, but the unknown. I share this with you because I know I'm not alone. So many of us have someone like that in our own story. A friend who felt like home, a connection that didn't start with fireworks, but with familiarity. A person who saw us clearly when the rest of the world didn't. And here's what makes dating a longtime friend so complicated. It feels like you have more to lose. You're not just risking a relationship, you're risking history, inside jokes, trust, years of shared memories. You're risking the one person who already knows your flaws and stayed anyway. But on the other side of that fear is another question we don't talk about enough. What if not trying costs you more? This episode isn't here to tell you what to do. It's here to help you listen to yourself, to unpack the emotions that come with blurred lines, to explore the difference between protecting a friendship and hiding from possibility, and to remind you that love doesn't always show up as something new. Sometimes it's been walking beside you for decades. So, as we move through this conversation together, I want you to think about that person in your life, the one who feels familiar, the one who feels steady, the one who might be more than a friend or might already be love in disguise. Let's explore this gently, honestly, without judgment, because your heart deserves that kind of care. So grab your coffee, tea, or whatever makes you feel cozy and settle in, because this isn't just a relationship question, it's a life question. It's about timing, it's about fear, it's about comfort, and sometimes it's about regret. Let's talk about it. Segment 1: When friendships start feeling different. Hey, hey there, beautiful people. Sunshine here, and I'm glad you're spending this time with me. Let's ease into this conversation together. Friendship doesn't usually announce when it changes. There's no big moment, no dramatic shift, no flashing sign that says something different now. Most of the time, it happens quietly, softly, almost politely. One day, you notice they're the first person you want to text when something good happens. Another day, you realize you feel calmer around them than anyone else. Sometimes it shows up as laughter that lasts a little longer, conversation that goes a little deeper, or silence that feels full instead of awkward. And that's when confusion sneaks in because this person has always been safe. You didn't meet them through dating apps or awkward introductions. There was no pressure, no performance. You just showed up as yourself, and they stayed. That kind of bond builds slowly, layer by layer, until one day you realize it's holding more than friendship. What makes this moment so complicated is that nothing is technically wrong. The friendship works, is solid, it's reliable. So when feelings start to shift, you might question yourself. You might tell yourself you're imagining it, or that it's just comfort, or loneliness, or habit. But here's the thing: real connection doesn't always start with sparks. Sometimes it starts with trust. Sometimes it grows through shared history, mutual respect, and showing up over time. And when that kind of connection starts to feel like more, it can be unsettling precisely because it's so grounded. You're not wondering if you like them. You're wondering if you're willing to see them differently and what that might change. Let me share a couple of stories from listeners who found themselves right at that quiet turning point. Let me introduce you to Rachel from Madison, who sent in a message that felt gentle and honest. She wrote, "Sunshine, I've known my friend since grad school. We studied together, supported each other through stressful semesters, and stayed close long after graduation. One night, we were sitting on her back porch, just talking about life. Nothing special was happening, no big moment, but I realized I felt completely at ease, like I didn't need to explain myself or impress her. That feeling stayed with me." Rachel shared that she didn't suddenly feel swept away. Instead, she felt settled. "I started noticing I wanted to plan things with her first," she wrote. "Not because I expected anything, just because being around her felt good. That's when I realized something had shifted. What stood out to me was how subtle it was. No drama, no rush, just recognition. Sometimes that's how real feelings arrive." Now let me tell you about Carlos from Albuquerque, whose message carried a different kind of awareness. He shared, "Sunshine, my best friend and I have known each other since high school. We've always joked that we were emotionally married without the romance. One afternoon, we was helping each other move apartments. At the end of the day, we sat on the floor surrounded by boxes, exhausted and laughing. I looked at her and I realized I trusted her more than anyone I've ever dated. Carlos said that moment caught him off guard, not because it was intense, but because it felt true. I didn't suddenly want to kiss her, he wrote. I just knew she mattered to me in a deeper way. And that realization scared me more than attraction ever had. That's the moment many of us recognize the invisible line where friendship starts leaning towards something else, even if no one has said it out loud. When friendships start feeling different, it doesn't mean you need to act immediately. It means you need to listen to yourself, to what feels steady, to what feels honest. And as natural as that shift can be, it often brings up the next layer of emotion: fear. Fear of loss, fear of change, fear of risking something that already works. And that's exactly where we're heading next. Segment 2: The fear of losing what you already have. Hey, beautiful people, Sunshine here. Take a breath with me for a second, because this part of the conversation can feel tender. If there's one reason people hesitate to date a long-time platonic friend, it's not lack of interest, it's not confusion, it's fear. Real, grounded fear. The kind that comes from already knowing what it feels like to have someone steady in your life. Friendship feels like a soft place to land. It's predictable in the best way. You already know how this person shows up when life gets messy. You know how they handle conflict. You know their habits, their flaws, their rhythms. And there's comfort in that. Deep comfort. So when romantic feelings start to creep in, your heart doesn't just ask, what if this could be amazing? It also asks, what if I lose everything I already have? Because here's the truth. We don't say out loud enough. Dating a friend feels like a higher stakes move than dating a stranger. With a stranger, if it doesn't work, you walk away with a lesson. With a friend, you risk history, shared memories, inside jokes, and someone who knows your family stories and your bad days. That's a lot to gamble. Many people stay silent, not because they don't care, but because they care so deeply they don't want to disrupt the balance. They choose familiarity over possibility. And sometimes that's the right choice. Other times, it slowly turns into a quiet ache. This is where the internal tug of war lives. You tell yourself you're being practical. You tell yourself you're protecting something valuable. But deep down, there's a small voice asking if safety is coming at the cost of honesty. Let's listen to a couple of stories from listeners who have stood right at that space. Let me tell you about Evan from Portland, who sent in a message that really stayed with me. He wrote, Sunshine, my best friend and I met in our 20s through work. For years, we were inseparable. Coffee before meetings, long walks after stressful days, late night talks about everything and nothing. People always asked if we were together, and we laughed it off. But there was a point where I knew my feelings had changed. I didn't say anything because our friendship felt like one of the few steady things in my life. I was afraid that if we tried and failed, I'll lose my safe place. Evan went on to say that eventually life pulled them in different directions. New jobs, new cities, fewer calls. No big fallout, just distance. I still think about her, he wrote. Not because we didn't date, but because I never gave us a chance to be honest. What struck me with Evan's story wasn't regret, it was clarity. Sometimes protecting a friendship doesn't preserve it forever. Sometimes silence slowly reshapes the connection anyway. Now, let me share Lena's story from Savannah because it offers a different angle. She shared, Sunshine, I've been friends with him for almost 10 years. He knew my worst breakup. I knew his family drama. When he finally asked me if we should try being more than friends, I was terrified. I told him I was scared of ruining what we had. He said something that stuck with me. He said, I think pretending nothing is there might ruin it more. They decided to date slowly, intentionally, with a lot of talking and a lot of checking in. We didn't work out romantically, Lena wrote, but we are still friends. It took time, space, and honesty, but we didn't lose each other. We just learned more about ourselves. That part matters. Fear tells us there are only two outcomes: perfect love or total loss. But real life is more nuanced than that. The fear of losing what you already have is valid. It means you value connection. It means you don't take people lightly. But fear isn't always a stop sign. Sometimes it's an invitation to slow down and choose with intention instead of avoidance. Whether you decide to speak up or stay where you are, the real question becomes this: are you choosing from alignment or from fear? And that question leads us directly into the next part of this journey. Because even when feelings are real, timing can change everything. And that's exactly where we're headed next. Segment 3: Timing, Readiness, and Emotional Availability. Hey, my beautiful people, Sunshine here. Take a breath with me because timing can be one of the hardest truths to accept. You can have connection, you can have history, you can even have love, and still not have the right timing. This is the part of the conversation where a lot of hearts get tangled because timing doesn't always line up with feeling. You might both care deeply, but one of you is healing from something heavy. One of you is rebuilding life after a loss. One of you is simply not in a place to risk emotional closeness, even with someone who feels safe. And that doesn't mean anyone is doing anything wrong. Sometimes we think if the connection is real, it should just work. But real life doesn't move in straight lines. Readiness matters. Emotional space matters. The ability to show up fully matters. Dating a longtime friend asks a different kind of honesty from you. It asks whether you can be present, not just familiar. It asks whether you're willing to bring intention into a relationship that's always been easy. And this is where patience can feel painful because when feelings are mutual, but timing isn't, the waiting can feel louder than the answer. Let's hear from a couple of listeners who found themselves right at that in between space. Let me introduce you to Nina from Asheville, who shared a message filled with reflection. She wrote, Sunshine, my friend and I met through a hiking group years ago. We spent weekends on trails talking about life, dreams, and fears. There was always something there, but neither of us named it. When he finally told me how he felt, I had just come out of a long relationship and didn't have the emotional energy to start something new, even with someone I trusted. Nina said turning him down wasn't about lack of feeling. It was about knowing her limits. I didn't want to bring half of myself into something that deserved more, she wrote. We stayed friends, but there was a tenderness there for a long time. Her story is such a reminder that sometimes love shows up before we're ready to receive it. And choosing honesty in those moments is an act of care, not rejection. Now, let me tell you about Daniel from Rochester, whose experience unfolded a little differently. He shared, Sunshine, my friend and I circled each other for years. We both dated other people, but somehow always came back to long conversations and shared routines. There was a moment when we could have tried something earlier, but I wasn't emotionally grounded yet. I knew I needed to work on myself first. Daniel said that time, while frustrating, made a difference. When we finally talked about dating, we were both clearer, calmer, and more honest, he wrote. It didn't feel rushed, it felt intentional. That's the power of timing when it aligns with readiness. It doesn't erase fear, but it gives you a stronger foundation to stand on. Timing isn't about perfection, it's about capacity. Do you have the emotional room to nurture something new without leaning on old patterns? Can you communicate openly instead of assuming understanding because of history? And sometimes the hardest truth to accept is that not every meaningful connection is meant to become a relationship right now or ever. Some are meant to teach us patience, some are meant to show us what safety feels like, and some linger quietly, reminding us that love isn't always about action, it's about awareness. And when you're standing at that crossroads, asking yourself whether to speak up or wait, whether to lean in or hold steady, the next question becomes deeply personal. So, how do you move forward without losing yourself in the process? That's where we're headed next. Segment 4, Asking the Question Without Losing Yourself. Hey, beautiful souls, Sunshine here. This part of the conversation matters because how you speak from your heart can shape everything that follows. When you've known someone for a long time, it can feel easier to avoid the conversation than to have it. You already know each other so well. You've built a rhythm. And introducing romantic honesty can feel like dropping a stone into still water. You don't know how far the ripple will go. But here's the truth, clarity, even when it's uncomfortable, is kinder than carrying questions alone. Asking a longtime friend how they feel isn't about pressure. It's not about ultimatums. It's about inviting honesty into a space that already holds truth. It's about speaking from curiosity rather than expectation. The way you ask matters just as much as what you ask. This isn't a moment for rehearsed speeches or dramatic confessions. It's a moment for grounded honesty, sharing how you feel without attaching outcomes, letting the conversation breathe instead of forcing a direction. And most importantly, it's about staying connected to yourself, knowing that your worth doesn't depend on their answer, knowing that speaking your truth is an act of self respect, not risk taking. Let me share a couple of listener stories from people who found courage in conversation. Let me introduce you to Erin from Boulder, who sent in a thoughtful message. She wrote, Sunshine, my friend and I had been close for years, and I realized I was starting to feel something more. I didn't want to overwhelm him or myself, so I chose a quiet moment. I told him I valued our friendship deeply and that I've been noticing my feelings shift. I made it clear I wasn't asking for an answer. I just wanted to be honest. Aaron said the conversation didn't change everything overnight, but it changed the weight she's been carrying. He needed time, she wrote, and I gave it. What mattered most was that I didn't lose myself by staying silent. That's such a powerful reminder. Sometimes the win isn't the outcome, it's the relief that comes from the honesty. Now, let me share James' story from Mobile because it speaks to patience. He shared, Sunshine, when I told my friend how I felt, she was surprised, not in a bad way, just caught off guard. She told me she needed time to think and didn't want to rush into anything. My first instinct was to panic, but I realized I had a choice to pressure her or respect her space. James chose space. We kept talking, we kept showing up, and even though it didn't turn into a relationship right away, I felt proud of how I handled it. I didn't push, I stayed true to myself. That kind of resilience is a weakness, it's emotional strength. When you open this door with a longtime friend, you're not just sharing feelings, but you're setting the tone for how much care exists between you. Whether the answer is yes or no, or not right now, how you navigate the conversation will echo longer than the words themselves. And here's something important to remember: you are allowed to want clarity, you are allowed to ask for honesty, and you are allowed to walk away from the conversation knowing you honored yourself. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is speak and let go of the control over the outcome. And now it's time to bring everything we've talked about together. Segment 5: What We've Learned plus Choosing with Courage. All right, beautiful souls, let's wrap this episode up together. Here's what this journey has shown us. Number 1, friendship turning romantic is natural. 2, fear doesn't mean you're wrong, it means you care. 3, timing shapes outcomes, but honesty shapes peace. 4, regret often whispers louder than rejection. 5, choosing courage doesn't guarantee love, but it guarantees growth. And I want to pause here for a moment because these aren't just ideas, they are lived experiences. They're moments that many of us carry quietly. They show up in the choices we make, the conversations we avoid, and the questions we replay in our minds late at night. Whether you decide to try, wait, or let the connection remain what it is, the real win is self trust. Trusting yourself to listen honestly. Trusting yourself to choose with care instead of fear. Trusting that whatever path you take, you're allowed to grow from it. Love doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it doesn't announce itself at all. Sometimes it shows up as familiarity, as comfort, as someone who's been sitting beside you for years, quietly proving who they are. Today we talked about blurred lines, quiet feelings, and brave choices. We explored what it means to risk comfort for possibility and how sometimes the deepest connections aren't new, they're just finally being seen clearly. If this episode spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share with someone who's been asking the same question. Leave a 5-star rating to help energize your passion reach more hearts. Join the conversation. Your story matters, and you never know who needs to hear it. Until next time, this is Sunshine reminding you your heart knows more than you think. Trust it. This is Sunshine, signing off.